There were some visits promised, and only so far one.
Reliance workers continue to be locked out, leaving customers fuming over the lack of service. The city is once again looking to close the pool at 80 Knox, but this proposal comes with major renovations to the center and promises of pool access nearby. As we take a live look outside, those clouds in the sky contain a special weather statement, chance of isolated thunderstorms across Windsor, Essex, and Chatham-Kent at this hour. Colette Kennedy with the details tonight. I'm Chris Hensing. Thanks for joining us. A memorial in London continues to grow for the Muslim family killed in what police say was a targeted attack. 4 members spanning 3 generations lost their lives while out on an evening walk when a driver crashed into them. The only family member who survived, a 9-year-old boy. Kelda Yoon has the details.
Police say they were targeted because they were Muslim.
Horrible, horrible tragedy that should never happen anywhere.
We're one big community here, and we won't stand for this.
Today, we're learning more about the victims. 46-year-old Salman Afzal, his wife, Madiha, their 15-year-old daughter, Yumna, and Salman's 74-year-old mother, Talat. Friends and family say they were deeply involved in the community and committed to their faith.
The family's a very integral part. They're very active members of our community. Both the father and mother are very well known. They attend prayers and services here at the London Muslim Mosque regularly. The children were students at our London Islamic School. The one daughter who passed, she graduated from our school last year, and she was in high school in grade 9. And the younger son is still a student at our school, and we pray for his recovery.
9-year-old Fayez, the sole survivor, remains in hospital in serious condition.
I just really hope that he's going to be looked after, that he makes a full recovery, and that something good comes from all of this for him, because he didn't deserve to have his whole family ripped away from him.
Kosar Maki spoke to the family right before the attack.
Yeah. So we were in the car, and my husband just rolled down the window just to say salam alaikum to him. It's just nice too, knowing that their last words, or the father's last words, was salam alaikum to somebody, which means it's peace upon you.
Police continued their investigation at the apartment of the 20-year-old London man who has been charged with 4 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder. In London, a community's determination to not let hate win.
The choice is very simple. We can allow these murders to divide and conquer us, or we can come together as we did in 9/11. We can love each other, we can support each other.
These are our brothers and sisters. They may share a different faith than us, but they're entitled to their faith.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford has eased pandemic restrictions so that people can gather here tonight for the vigil at the London Muslim Mosque, where the family celebrated their faith. Ford and the Prime Minister will be in attendance. The vigil gets started at 7 p.m. Eastern. Kelda Yoon, CBC News, London, Ontario.
And here in Windsor, people in the local Muslim community say the tragedy has hit close to home. They say this is another example of Islamophobia in our society, and that more action is needed to put an end to it.
I am now more conscious of the cloth I put on my head. It doesn't even do any harm to anybody, but apparently it, triggers hatred in people. Somebody who has a beard, somebody who dresses differently in different skin color, those are affecting many people. They're more conscious of what they're doing every day.
As a Muslim who lives in Windsor, and I've been here for almost 20 years, this could have been me, this could have been my family, and this could have been any of the families here in Windsor, any of the families here in Canada.
So I had gone for a trip just to see someone, and I came back, and I saw the news, and I was like, whoa, I literally was there the day before, the moment it happened. If I had left 5 minutes later or 5 minutes earlier, I probably would have passed by the scene, and just to know that I could have been there at that moment was just, it kind of shook me, to be honest. And definitely was not something that I was able to rest easy last night on.
For me to go out and want to do my everyday things, I have to think twice about and be conscious where I'm walking, what I'm doing, who I'm talking to, how I portray myself in society, and that's something that is a toll on yourself, on your health, on everything.
Think of the 9-year-old that's still here today. His family is gone. So in that case, it hits hard. What we really need to do is we need to call our friends, we need to call our families, we need to let them know how much we love them.
It really felt like a more personal, like that could have been my family, that could have been a family of someone I'm really close to just because of my faith. Like it wasn't because of anything. And at the end of the day, they were my family. They are my brothers, my sisters, my peers, folks who are part of the same religion. We're all kind of connected as a people.
I think when people stand and say Islamophobia is not in Canada or this doesn't happen in Canada, I think that sentence is not true. And if you want it to be true, then make it be true. Enough just talking and giving condolences. Yes, we give our condolences because that is, you know, the minimum of respect that we need to offer those people. But we need to do something, you know, we need to stand up for justice, and not only towards Muslim, but towards every minority group, every person of color, every person who has been discriminated against.
And the Premier is describing what happened as a terrorist attack.
I'd like to pass my sincere condolences on to the Muslim community across Ontario, across Canada, and our prayers and thoughts are with the family of this terrible, terrible tragedy. This is nothing short than a terrorist attack on innocent people based on their faith and their religion, and there's no place for that in Ontario. We're a community that sticks together, and we will be united behind the Muslim community. I have asked the local medical officer of health to have an exemption for a gathering, a vigil tonight, which I'll be attending. We're passing legislation to make sure people can gather and grieve with the family and with members of the Muslim community.
Here in Windsor, the city still has its sights set on Ojibwe Shores. Council endorsing a push by Windsor West MP Brian Massey. He wants the federal government to transfer the property to the Ministry of the Environment and Climate Change. Dale Molnar has been looking into what all that entails. Joins us now. Dale, the city was trying to procure Ojibwe Shores with a land swap. Why the change?
Well, that deal fell through a few weeks ago when the Port Authority deemed the property at Russell and Mill Streets to be too contaminated to be useful. But we've learned today that another land swap may still happen. Brian Massey wants to see Ojibwe Shores added to 4 other publicly owned natural areas to create a national urban park.
So this is something that we can unite around. We can move past on. It's simply one department, being the Port Authority, transferring land to the Ministry of Environment to another department, and we move forward with a business plan that can be worked on for a national urban park. But
Steve Salmons, the Port Authority president and CEO, says it's not that simple. He says Transport Canada, which controls the land, would have to sell it to the Environment Ministry at market value.
So for the Ministry of Environment to take the property has to be appraised and then transferred on the books to Environment Canada. Environment Canada actually has to transfer that equivalent cash value over the transportation. Why? I don't know.
The city was originally going to expropriate this property at Russell and Mill Streets and swap it for Ojibwe Shores, but it would have cost too much to rehabilitate. Russell and Mill has been sold, but Massey says the federal government should acquire it to keep it green space.
You think about our history in the Duff Bobby House, and next to the Hunter being a military operation there, and then next to that, the Sandwichtown Park system, it really makes sense to keep it green.
The city also endorses that plan, but Salmon says the Port Authority is close to making a deal with the city for a swap on another piece of land, and says he thinks if City Council had known that, it wouldn't have endorsed Massey's letter.
Both the city and the port are actively engaged in very positive, open, fruitful discussions that are going to result in the preservation of Ojibwe as a natural heritage area, and of course, provide the community, the port, with an equivalent piece of land that will provide economic prosperity for the community without any risk to its environmental sustainability. I think that's a win-win.
Salmons wouldn't say where the land was, only that it was not on the waterfront. Andrew Teleszewski from the mayor's office says the city is in, quote, active conversation with the Port Authority about a land swap, but he also says yesterday's motion by City Council shows their patience is running thin. And we've reached out to the Minister of Transport, Omar Alghabra, for comment, but so far we haven't heard back. The Port Authority is optimistic about their land swap, despite what Telezuski says. Salmons tells me he feels they'll have a deal by the end of the summer. Chris?
Something to keep an eye on there. Thanks, Dale. CBC's Dale Molnar live tonight. A new pitch from the city of Windsor will see 80 Knox lose its pool, but a multi-million-dollar agreement with the University of Windsor would save swimming in the West End. That pool would be housed here, inside the previously announced Lancer Center on the university campus. An 8-lane pool, slightly bigger than the one at 80 Knox today. It will have an accessible shallow end, women's, men's, and universal change rooms, as well as an on-deck spectator viewing area. All this inside what's described as a bold and ambitious building, 119,000 square feet of an athletic center. It would be 1.5 kilometers west of 80 Knox. The city of Windsor saying 93% of all typical pool bookings will be accommodated at the Lancer Center. People would pay the same as they would at a city pool, and free parking for city pool users negotiated into the tentative deal. But to swim to the future, you have to dive into the past. The pool at 80 Knox has been on the chopping block for a decade.
A new aquatic center would mean 80 Knox's pool wouldn't be needed.
Back in 2011, when the downtown aquatic center was being built, again in 2013, saved by protesting seniors.
It shouldn't be closed, definitely not.
Surviving once again in 2019 when council called for a feasibility study looking at long-term options for the pool.
But this facility in itself is relatively more used than any other comparable facility.
This newest option goes before council later this month. If approved, 80 Knox would undergo a major reconstruction worth $42 million. A third of that funding could come from the federal government through the Green and Inclusive Community Building Grant. But the plan must be submitted in early July. It's why this is coming together right now. The mayor says he wants the grant, but would move ahead without it.
Regardless of what happens here, there will be work starting on 80 Knox.
Consultations will run this month, asking residents what should be at the new 80 Knox. Well, council could be diving into a debate that's made a splash before. Ward Councillor Fabio Costante says there's a big difference this time around.
And so I'm looking forward to those discussions. But the plan before us today is markedly different than what we saw in 2019.
As for timelines, if this is approved, the pool at 80 Knox would not close until the Lancer Center pool has been open, including a bit of overlap. The Lancer Center's projected opening date, May 2022. A heated dispute between an Ontario company and its employees has customers boiling. Workers at Reliance Home Comfort were locked out last month after contract negotiations hit a wall. Now, with the recent hot temperatures in the area, some who rely on the service to fix their air conditioners are getting heated instead. Jacob Barker has that story.
It's a call Gunther Wolf has been waiting for.
Wonderful, I'm going to kiss you and get you a beer.
Someone is on the way to fix his air conditioner, but it isn't a worker from Reliance Home Comfort, the company that services the warranty on his air conditioning unit. He first called them on May 21st, but it's still not fixed. So he hired someone on his own and plans to send the bill to the company.
I don't like doing it, but have you seen the weather report and what else is coming? I need to.
It isn't easy to live in Wolf's house these days.
Well, right now it's 29.5 degrees Celsius.
He says a Reliant worker showed up one day but couldn't complete the work because of weather. Numerous other appointments were made, but he says nobody ever showed up. He says he's had nothing but good experiences with the company before this, but nobody ever told him about the lockout. He found out when he went to their offices to say something.
Frustrating. I'm disappointed, and I understand with the lockout, and okay, that there are circumstances, but then tell me that.
The province-wide lockout affects about 80 workers here in Windsor. They say the company is refusing to give junior workers an ample amount of sick leave, an issue that's taken on greater importance for them during the pandemic. They're not willing to give in.
The folks that I help represent here, they are committed to the fact that our second-tier workers need a fair deal.
They say they've been hearing from customers as well, and Wolf isn't the only one who's shown up at the offices looking for answers.
They're fully prepared to allow customers to sit and suffer while we sit and suffer.
In a statement, Reliance says it wants to reach a fair agreement with the workers, But in the meantime, it is leveraging its large network of professional licensed contractors as well as business partners and team members, and that the approaches it uses to meet demand vary from day to day, and that's normal. Wolf says he was offered $100 to cover the cost of the bill for the outside fix, but any more than that will need further approval. Jacob Barker, CBC News, Windsor.
Daily COVID-19 case counts continue to decrease. Today, 11 new cases. The health unit reporting that 3 people have died, 2 men in their 60s, another man who was in his 50s. There are 153 active cases in the region. Almost 60% of Windsor-Essex has 1 dose. 11% now have both shots. And Canadian officials are looking now toward finally reopening the border with the United States, and restrictions could start easing up starting by the summer. The current border closure is set to expire later this month on June 21st. A federal official tells CBC News a June reopening is unlikely, but it could happen in July. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said yesterday that a reopening plan would likely happen in multiple stages. He also says that the first tourists to start entering Canada again will have to be fully vaccinated. We take a look outside there as we see what's shaping up to be a little bit of a sunset. Some raindrops, I think, if we look there close enough. It's hard to tell. Good thing we got Colette Kennedy coming up. She knows all this better than the rest of us. We'll take a look at the forecast next. And joining us now for a live look at the weather is Colette Kennedy. Colette, we were just taking a peek outside right now. You could hear the thunder here a little bit in Windsor, but yesterday there was some funky clouds too. I think we're going to bring up some photos. Actually, this is from earlier today in Chatham. Just around 2:30. This is west of Chatham. Somebody had spotted that. What looks like some, ominous clouds up there.
Yeah, that looks like a funnel cloud there. And then these are the images I gather from yesterday. I mean, look at how incredible this is. You see it kind of covers the horizon there. And when you see a cloud like this, so we have the thunderstorm cloud, cumulonimbus, all right, that's what we call that. But it's got an Arcus cloud that has attached itself underneath. And there are different types. You've probably heard of a shelf cloud or a wall cloud. This, I believe, was a shelf cloud. It's usually kind of on the leading edge of the storm. Walls tend to be at the back, but you get those updrafts with those storms and then the downdrafts. Doesn't it look like a spaceship? By the way, when you do see a spaceship type of cloud, but it's in the sky not attached to a thunderstorm, those are lenticular, and those really can look like UFOs when they're just kind of floating there in the sky. But that tends to be in fairer weather. All right, let's talk about our weather. It hasn't exactly been fair. Some active conditions right across what we're seeing in eastern and southwestern Ontario. So a special weather statement in place because of these isolated storms that have been popping up, some of them with some torrential downpours, highly localized, but still. We've got 24 degrees right now, 32 for the Humidex. Windsor light, they're not a huge factor here, but I do really want to look at all the lightning strikes here. But what's happening just in this last hour even, we're seeing things diminishing. So we lose the energy of that daytime heating, and then things start to wind down. So they will be. There's still a few areas where I have severe thunderstorm warnings, but that's over towards Huron County, Sarnia, Lambton, through some regions there. Into tomorrow afternoon, do we have a chance of doing this again? Yep, we absolutely do. And so especially to the afternoon, early evening hours, another hot day. I had thought we'd be breaking out of this heat and humidity, but there's a front that's going to be coming down from the north. I don't know if it's necessarily going to get to us. So not only am I keeping us in the heat tomorrow, I'm actually now keeping us in the heat as well beyond that. Now, I'm still really carefully watching the projections here. There's a system coming in from the west. There's this cold front trying to come down, make it to us. Possible we'll go into that drier air very soon. But the way it's looking for me, how I am reading it right now, is that we're going to continue into the heat and humidity for some time yet, Chris.
All right, and thanks for the lesson there on what to look at when we're looking up in the clouds there.
Anytime.
Thanks, Colette. The Canadian Tourism Association pushing to get the border between Canada and the U.S. opened as soon as possible. More on how they plan to do what they want when we return. With positive vaccination rates both here and in the United States, some say the border should reopen sooner than later. In a bid to save the summer, the Canadian Tourism Association has launched a campaign to accelerate talks to do just that. Ali Chiasson with the latest.
How has the pandemic affected the tourism sector? Take it from the general manager of one of Toronto's most popular attractions, the Ripley's Aquarium.
It's shut us down. We've been closed for 288 straight days.
It's been financially draining.
We have to maintain our animals, our exhibits, our water quality, our building.
A place like this also employs a lot of people.
In the summertime, we'd have like 250 people working here, and we're, about a third of that at the moment, or less than a third.
It's the story of the whole sector right now.
The tourism industry was the first hit by the pandemic, the hardest hit, and will be the last to recover.
And that's why we're here at a press conference hosted by the Tourism Association of Canada.
We are asking for the federal, provincial, and territorial governments to work together on a plan to reopen.
Talks are ramping up. The feds say the reopening will be done in phases.
We want to get back to normal. We want to start traveling again.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau stopped short of making an announcement today, but reiterated that the sooner second doses can be administered, the sooner restrictions will be lifted.
It's very clear that even though one dose has allowed us to significantly protect Canadians, it is still an incomplete protection, and we need people to get the full 2 doses of their vaccines.
The Tourism Association agrees reopening the borders should be done in a phased way, starting with the U.S. border. But the GM of Ripley's Aquarium says it shouldn't just be spurred on them. Like yesterday's reopening of the local economy being announced 3 days early, tourism operators need time to plan.
We have to bring back staff. We have to retrain them, hire new staff, develop our marketing programs, sales initiatives. All that takes time, and we can't start it and start spending money until we know that we have a clear opening timeline.
Until then, the province says Ontario expects the federal government will, at minimum, 1, ensure safe international arrivals by fully vaccinated travelers, and 2, implement a quarantine for non-vaccinated travelers that is enforced and effective. Border restrictions are due for renewal June 21st. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
Now, the local tourism board says having a plan in place to open the border is vital to businesses as they have to prepare for more customers. Meanwhile, their focus, it continues to be on tourists within the region.
The campaign is vitally important. Last year, we know that a lot of businesses were still closed at the time, or they were open to limited capacity. We counted on the locals, our Windsorites and our friends from the county, to support local, and they stepped up in a big way. We know they're going to want to do that again this year. The other thing that it did was it encouraged people to get out and explore their own backyard when maybe they would have been traveling down the 401 or across an international border, which they weren't really able to do at the time.
Now, depending on how the reopening goes, they plan to expand their marketing to Detroit and Ohio next year. Dozens of websites were down this morning after a glitch hit the digital cloud service used by many major companies. The brief outage affected many high-traffic sites, including Reddit, Amazon, PayPal, and Spotify. Fastly, the U.S. company which provides the cloud-based service, says it later identified and fixed the issue. The outage was resolved before most Americans and Canadians woke up this morning. And that's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website at cbc.ca/Windsor. We're on social media too. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We live stream the show on Facebook, Twitter, and our YouTube page as well. The Rick Mercer Report is up next. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.